Hello and welcome to all of you astrology friends. This is the horoscope for March for 2023 for all the signs. And I've been preparing this video for March already in my other videos that I made. That is totally one video about Saturn that will shift into Pisces, and another separate video about Pluto that will shift into Aquarius. So Saturn will shift into Pisces around at about the 7th to 8th of March, and Pluto will shift into Aquarius around at about the 24th of March. And to know all the details of that, I'll put a link below and also at the end of the video so that you can have some more information. But this is more like March, what's going on just in March. And of course, these two big planets that shift into a different sign is very important. But there's another aspect that I want to talk about as well for March that is going to be very relevant for the whole month as well. And that is Mars square Neptune. So yes, you can have a look at this video for, let's say, more of an overview of what's going on in general, of course, for your sign. So let's break this down. This Mars is in Gemini, by the way, and it is approaching, the degrees around 23, 24, 25 degrees of Gemini, where it's gonna clash with Neptune in a square. So Neptune is around 24, 25 degrees of Pisces. And actually, of course, when the moon will be in another, these are mutable signs, by the way. So if the moon is going to be in Sagittarius, it's going to make a T-square, and that means a lot of tension. And in mutable signs, it means that a lot of shifts can happen. So the focus, you could say, of all of this T-square that I'm talking about, of the Mars square Neptune. I know a lot of astrologers will talk about Saturn and Pluto, and they are correct. It's a huge thing. But for this monthly horoscope, it's important also to talk about the Mars square Neptune. So the peak is around, you could say, from the 14th to the 17th of March, but it's the whole month. So what is this all about? This Mars square Neptune, I want to tell a little bit more in particular about this aspect. It shows that the whole month of March, which is already with all these changes of the big planet Saturn, which is about boundaries, which is about testing times, right? It tests out where it transits. And Pluto, it's also about that, but even a bit stronger than that. It's all about taking back your power, and it's all about tackling those fears, basically, and going through the barrier of fear. That is what Pluto is all about. And amongst that, we've got this very Neptunian vibe with the planet of doing, which is Mars, and in a square. So the whole month, you could say, is going to be very much like if you think you've got it all sorted out, and that is going to be the solution, it's probably not, because it's a month where this day you go to the left, the other day you go to the right. So with Mars Neptune, actually, although it is a square, the positive side of a Mars Neptune is to go with the flow and to follow the guidance, you could say, of the universe. But that sounds all very esoteric, doesn't it? Or spiritual. But it has to do with a trusting of that universe, that even if you don't know where the universe is carrying you towards, you go with the flow and you do your best that you can and you adjust. So if you are a person that doesn't like to adjust that has difficulty with that, it could be a challenging month. If you are a person that says, yeah, I want to accept what is, also the things that I don't like, but I'm going to adjust and I'm going to quickly adapt, then this can be a fantastic month because you are going to be guided. You are saying yes to Neptune, and you're going to be guided towards what you need and what is best for you and everyone concerned. When Mars is about our actions, it's about our intention. When we have a Mars square Neptune, I can't stress this enough, watch your intention. Because in a square, it tends to go to, I'm going to do this a little bit sneaky. I'm going to do this a little bit, behind the scenes, like a Mars in Pisces would do, or a Mars in the 12th house. It's Mars Neptune. That is, of course, the challenge of not to do that, of not to go into like the ego of, hey, I want this to happen. So if it's not working directly, I'm going to do it indirectly. Of course, we do what we do. And but with the Mars Neptune, what you send out will come back to you. And this is a whole month, right? So it's very important for us to have good boundaries and to have healthy boundaries, not too strict, but also not too loose. And that we watch our own intentions. Of course, we cannot watch other people's intentions or tell them what to do, especially when they are adults, of course, under the age of 13, 14, if they're your children. Of course, you need to tell them what to do. But after that, people are adults, and trying to turn someone's way of doing so that it suits you is going to backfire, basically. So the best thing you can do is watch your intentions. And I'm going to show where this Mars falls in your particular area of your life for all the signs. And that is where we need to pay attention towards what is our intention here. If the intention, by the way, is to do something out of love rather than fear. I fear, so I want to have control, so I'm going to do it. It's not a good indicator. If you are trusting that in the self, that your intention is correct, that your intention is not sneaky. If you have the intention of building something with the circumstances that you have, with the people that are around you, and that you're trying to do your best to build something constructive, you cannot go wrong with this aspect, right? So on a very good level, this can mean that you can do something for the collective, that you can do something with someone else, and for, putting your ego to the side, not so that other people walk all over you, but, to do something together. So there's definitely a very interesting energy. It's also very artistic energy, very creative energy. For those of you who work in the artistic world, in the creative world, this can be a fantastic aspect, because it's about idealism. It's about doing the ideal. It's about tapping into the inspiration, into the ether to catch the inspiration. So it's not all doom and gloom, for sure. But indeed, a very eventful month, because all of these things are happening. Let's break this down into the signs, because I want that every single sign knows a little bit, has the background story for that whole month. So Aries people, the Mars that I'm talking about for you is in your 3rd house. And Mars, of course, has been so long already in Gemini. So mind your speech, watch what you're saying, and also don't let other people walk all over you when it comes to the speech, right? This Neptune is in your 12th house. So this is your unconscious. So be very, very aware and mindful of what you are saying, because words create reality. And that is a very, very important one for you. And then later on, Mars will be your ruler, by the way, will be shifting finally into Cancer. It has been in Gemini for such a long time, and it will shift into Cancer approximately the end of the month, the 26th of March. So there will be a bit more focus on your home life, your emotional well-being, but definitely for you, this alert of don't be tempted, because you're insecure, you're doing things that you don't want to do, and you're going to regret later on, and especially with the speech. Now, Saturn is going into Pisces, and that will be your 12th house. As I said in the video of the Saturn videos as well, it's not a bad thing to have Saturn in your 12th house, because that means a cleaning up. That means a restructuring of your old patterns that haven't been working for you anymore. And here is like, Saturn is like, okay, this doesn't work anymore for me. Smoking like a whole package of cigarettes every single day, that's not working for me anymore. I'm going to discipline myself in less is more, you could say, and in day by day kind of a disciplined day by day kind of story. So, and that is about releasing and letting go of these attachments that are no longer working for you. That is what Saturn is all about, but more about that in the video separately. And Pluto is, so that's going to stay there for such a long time. That is really, really good for you Aries people, especially for you Aries people who are struggling with addictions, who are struggling with, you want to escape. And now you have an opportunity for like 2 years or even more, 2 years and a half to tackle that, you know, day by day. Pluto is shifting into your 11th house, dear Aries people. Now for you, that is quite good because Pluto in Aquarius in Aries goes well. Okay, even though it is Pluto, it's a sextile. So that means that you will have, Pluto is all about doing the things and that you want to do and that are very authentic, and you want realness and authenticity more than ever in your goals and the wishes that you have for the future. So it could mean that a goal needs to go, and especially when Pluto enters that house, it could mean that, yeah, becoming that prima ballerina, I'm 36 now, maybe I have to let go of that goal. And that makes place for a goal that suits you better, that's more authentic and more suiting to you. The same with friendships. There could be some Plutonian story with friendships. So whenever Pluto is in a social house, like your 11th house, it means that your social life will be more intense, more under the sensitivity of power struggle. So you have to balance. And why is that? Not to annoy you. Pluto doesn't come there to annoy you, but to restore the balance, to either take your power back when a friend is being, you know, sometimes friends can be also very karmic, right? And definitely when Pluto goes into the 11th, it can mean a karmic relationship. There needs to be a transformation. Either a friend has too much power over you and you have to take your power back. You have to say no, or you have to, you know, be more authentic, or you take too much power over that friend and you dictate them what to do, and they are going to say, no, thank you very much. I want to restore the power balance between the two of us. So, but a friend can go under some circumstances that are really, really transformative, and also that has a knock-on effect on you. So, but all in all, it's for you not the worst month ever. Not at all, because this Pluto is making a sextile. Mars in Gemini is also making a beautiful aspect to your fire energy. So all in all, it's quite good and well, but be mindful of your thoughts and how you communicate, your connection with siblings, your connection with neighbors. Be very careful, but stand your ground. Taurians, this Mars, first of all, is in your 2nd house. So you have to be, which is your house, by the way. The 2nd house is the house of the Taurian. So you have to be careful with money and with self-esteem. These are the big chunks of what the 2nd house is representing. So this can be your chance to kind of look again at your finances and at your self-esteem. But again, don't do things under the radar. Don't do things sneaky. That is totally not recommended when Mars is squaring Neptune. So, so if you want to do like a shortcut and want to earn more money, and it's like, ooh, it's all a bit vague, be aware of what I said in the beginning of the video, your intentions. What are your intentions? If it's to grow confidence, if it's to do these things for not only yourself, but also the people involved. And the positive vibe is definitely going to be for you very positive then when you do that. Although it's demanding a lot of mindfulness. Also, you can really do a lot to gain more self-esteem, to have more value in what you do. But again, do that not just for the ego, but do that in a very realistic way, in a good communicative way, because this Mars is in Gemini, the planet. It's about communication. This Neptune for you is in the 11th house. So this could mean like expenses that has to do with a goal, or expenses and your worth, your value that has to do with friends or a group of friends. There is some trickiness there. The only thing you can do is to follow your integrity, not trying to influence or not try to let people, friends in this case, do what you want them to do, but also be alert that they are not trying to manipulate you as well. So to stand your ground when it comes to that. Saturn is shifting in your 11th house of Pisces. So Saturn in the 11th house means more structure, more healthy boundaries in that 11th house. Again, the house of friends. So making good, you have 2.5 years for this, but it's about making good boundaries with friends. Less is more for sure. Being very real with your friends as well. And having healthy boundaries. So that could mean that for one friend, one particular friend, you let them walk all over you. Now it's time to put boundaries. Or the other way around, maybe you walked all over them and they are saying, no, I don't want to see you anymore. So it depends on your story, but Saturn in the 11th can diminish a little bit of that energy there. Like socially, it's a bit more awkward. Socially, it means that less is more. That's the message. And it's about restoration and with healthy boundaries with them. The same for your goals. So it's better to have one goal than have 10 and not do any one of them. So it's better to focus on one goal that is practical. Yes, it may be expansive, it may be very interesting and idealistic, but it's better to have one goal than 10 goals and work every single day on that particular goal. When you have a business of your own, Saturn in the 11th is not really my favorite to see, because it can mean like, oh, it's even more difficult to gain more income when Saturn is in your 11th house, but it has to do with that structure. Certainly with the combination with Mars in your second house, it's about your intention. It's about good structures that you want to do there. And it's about hard work as well. So maybe you have just started, or even not. There needs to be some things more structured when it comes to your goal setting and when it comes to the way that you do finances as a whole. Then Pluto in your 10th house, this is a big one. Pluto, if certainly the early born Taurians, so who've got planets around 0 degrees to 2 degrees of Taurus, they will feel this Pluto energy from the 24th of March up until it's up until June that Pluto is going to be there. It's a sneak preview. So during this period of time, it's about transformation of your career or a parent, your connection with a parent. So whatever it is, it's about taking back your power. So some of you will be challenged in a relationship with a parent, and others will be challenged in a relationship with work. Whatever it is, it has to do with a restoring of balance. So there could be power struggles for sure, with a parent or with work. Especially if you work for someone, it's about you taking your power back. It's about not letting other bosses or people walk all over you. But it's also about taking responsibility and looking for a better situation and working on that. And that is a process, of course. Now, but for many of you, it will be standing in your power. It will be doing what you want to do in a career that is really you and that is really authentic. And so you have to own it, basically. And when you do that, you're so strong and so powerful. So it's about creating that authority you yourself. But you've got a lot of time for that. I mean, Pluto's going to stay there for 20 years. But it's mostly when Pluto enters that house that those shifts can show. So for some of you, yes, it means there is a new career possible. But you will have to go through the barrier of fear to take those steps and not feeling like in a cage by someone, right? If you feel trapped, it's actually a good sign. It means that you feel it, and it's only when you're feeling it that you can shift it. Of course, you have free will, but so it depends on your situation. But definitely it has to do with some transformations that you want to take, some deaths and rebirths, and some new identification of how you see your life or the rest of your life, how you are going to do your career. So you can become a very powerful person when it comes to your career and having that authority and even changing other people's lives and empowering them. But you have to empower yourself first and foremost, and owning it that you are the leader of your career. And it's time, because that is what Pluto on the 10th house is all about. Geminis. This is, of course, this Mars square Neptune is going to be very, although the other planets, big planets, entering another sign is important, the Mars in your sign is still a very important aspect for you, because it's in your sign and it's going to square Neptune in the house of career. And it's going to do that, that energy during the whole month. So for you, it's very important. What I said in the beginning of when I was talking about the aspect of Mars square Neptune, everything is applicable for you there. And that really has to do with what are my intentions. So for a Gemini, very, very important, because now is the time to set the, you could say, the intention. And especially if you're a Gemini, a later Gemini, like 20 degrees up until 29, you will feel this very strongly, that there is like, blurriness going on when it comes to the direction of your career, to take that right step, to follow your integrity. I mean, you can't go wrong when you do that with Mars Neptune. That is actually the thing that a lot of Geminis now will start a new career as well. And it can be when it's Neptunian, the career. In other words, if it's for the collective, doing something for the collective, doing something to, in a spiritual way, in a creative way. Well, you can be an IT specialist, but be very creative, or being some sort of a teacher for people. That is really, really positive with this whole aspect. If you don't know where you're heading, which is also very Neptunian, you can become, of course, very insecure about that. And it could mean that, you're, because of the career, the circumstances there, you can get a little bit insecure. But again, do each and single day, work from the integrity and go with the flow a little bit, and you cannot go wrong there. The other big thing is, of course, Saturn, also in the house of career, that is entering around the 7th to 8th of March. Now, this is about structuring and being an authority, taking responsibility with the career. The older you are, the better you will deal with this. If you are still very young and you have Saturn on the midheaven, it's probably more apparent that could test you in some sort of way, and that there has to be like this testing with each other, like, okay, I want to be responsible, but if I'm 18 years old and I still live at home and I'm not really taking care of my laundry or whatever, and I'm just seeing the home as a hotel, then this can be very tricky. A parent could really say, okay, this is it, you go out. So that's, of course, a bit to the extreme, but that is the example of Saturn on the midheaven. It's time to be responsible and to be mature. Of course, if you're 12 years old, it's a bit harder. But these are those energies that you can apply. And for most of you, this will have to do with career, or how you want to be seen in the world. The best thing I can advise is to work hard. Less is more, though. So not to burn out, not at all, but to take that responsibility, not running away from responsibility, not, the guilty trip or the complaining trip. Like if you work for a company and they're not doing, the policy is not what you like, well, stop complaining. Don't say like, oh, they should do this, they should do that. That's the negative side of Saturn. Actually, you better be your own boss then, and you take your responsibility. Or if you are scared of not risking because you're of the money issue, then you don't complain, and you do that as a learning school, and you prepare you could say, your wishes in the long term of building your own career. So Saturn is really, really, if you're a bit older, mostly what I see Saturn on the midheaven is that people are in control in their career. But again, if you're not looking outwardly too much for, the on the shoulder. I don't find the word. The patch on the shoulder, the on the shoulder. Don't look for that too much. You have to give that use to yourself. That is Saturn, being your own parent, basically. That is what this is all about. And Pluto will be in the 9th house. That is very good for you. It's definitely, of course, it's still Pluto, but Pluto is entering Aquarius. It's making a trine to your Aquarius, to your Gemini energy. And that means a shift in how you present yourself with your words and what your opinions are. There's going to be a whole transformation going on. So prepare yourself for what you once thought was the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. It's going to shift. It has 20 years to do that. So it's not going to be all when Pluto enters your 9th house, but be prepared to form a new, you could say, narrative of how you see the world. So you better do this in a tolerant way, not too rigid, but in a tolerant way. And so if you are someone who's very already good at your speech, be aware that power struggles can come up here with other people about beliefs, the belief system. So don't fall for the ego trip pitfall, because it's all about, if you are very convinced of someone, of something, you don't have to convince others, right? You just exude it and you just follow your own truth. That is, if you do that, wow, you're going to have a really powerful message. It's very good for writers, for speakers, when they don't fall into that Plutonian shadow of Pluto in the 9th house. And it could also mean travel. Every time you're going to travel, you're going to kind of transform. Okay, Cancerians, what is this all about? Mars in your 12th house. So it's the last piece, you could say. Up until the 26th of March, when Mars will be in your sign. That's going to be way better for you. But before that, it's this Mars square Neptune. So for you in particular, this is a bit of a tricky position for you. So why? Because self-undoing, right? Being the victim. I'm not saying that you're going to do that. It depends on your character, but there's a tendency to go there, right? So, and it's definitely not going to work here with Mars squaring Neptune. So be aware of your energy, where you're putting it into. If you're going to put it in sneaky stuff, if you're going to put it in doing things behind the scenes, and because of your ego, this could become quite cruel, you could say, not only for others, but also for yourself. Best is to use this Mars in the 12th house in a positive way, which would be working behind the scenes for a project, for, for research, working behind the scenes in hospitals, in prisons, and, doing something for people who are absolutely in need for help and who want the help. So you could be doing a lot for other people during this month, and you're really going to help out others. Again, healthy boundaries. This is very important for Mars in the 12th house. Healthy boundaries. Don't let other people walk all over you. Don't sacrifice. That's not what I'm saying here. So the ones that scream for your help, oh, you have to help me. These are usually not the ones that need to help. But anyway, so keep that in mind very much. Now, Saturn is in Pisces, entering Pisces in your 9th house. Saturn is seen as a bit of a difficult planet, but in Pisces, that is a fellow water sign. So for you, it's not that bad. Saturn in the 9th means a bit more structure in your thinking, in your perspective of life, and also in how you present your beliefs towards other people. So as long as you're not dogmatic and say, my truth is all truth and you have to do it, it's not going to work. That is out of fear, right? But if you're the Saturn entering your ninth house for 2.5 years, more than 2.5 years, is actually establishing a new belief system that is more suiting you, that is truthful, that is mature. And that is what this is all about. For some of you, it's a study. It could be a study of all those years, and a serious study where you have to work very consistently. For others, it's about travel, and when they do travel, they could travel for work, for instance, or they could travel with every time they travel, they meet Saturn, which is maturity. So it gives them some sort of maturity, or you can't run away from your responsibilities when you travel. I know it's a weird explanation, but that's how it is. Saturn in the ninth house. Again, all in all, for you, it's quite a nice, not nice, but a kind of a positive transit, because it's a trine to your sign. Pluto in the 8th house. Wow, that is a deep one, because it's in its own house. Pluto is the planet of transformation, and it's in the house of transformation. It's in the house of death and rebirth. It's in the house of your deep psychological understanding. So for studying something that has to do with psychology, that has to do all with the metaphysical side of life, is amazing when Pluto enters your 8th house. But for most of you, this will have to do with power struggles when it comes to value and money. So if you are in a relationship and you share resources, this is about doing it in the right way. So not with an imbalance, but to get the balance between the two of you. So be aware of power struggles with Pluto in the 8th house. And that means like not letting people walk all over you, but not overrule others either with manipulation. So it goes both ways. And Pluto in the 8th is definitely about your shadow and encountering them and facing them and understanding them first and foremost, and then you can work with them. So it can give deep psychological insight. I mean, Cancerians already have that, this emotional intelligence, but this is going deep and understanding. Leos, this Mars is for you in Gemini in the 11th house, and this is going to be Mars square Neptune, but Mars in Gemini is a sextile to your energy. So normally this would go fairly good if you prepare yourself for when Mars is in the 11th house, that you want to take the leadership in a group, for instance, rather than let other people dictate you what to do. You know, Mars is taking action, and you could be taking action in a group, but again, beware of your intentions. If your intention is to raise yourself and others and not just you, you cannot go wrong. But be aware of this energy of flueness and of these energies of not being sure what other people want and that trickiness over there. But again, you can't control that. And what you can control is your own actions in that house. So definitely it could mean that you start a workshop, for instance, and being the leader of that group, or teaching something because it's in the sign of Gemini, or being active with your friends. And on another level, it can mean that there is some trickiness with a friend that is wanting to stand up for themselves, and that is a bit feisty and fiery there because it's Mars after all. The only thing you can do is be aware of your boundaries, make sure that they're not running over your boundaries, and that your intentions are correct. And that is your strength, basically, during this transit. It also has to do with, hang on, the bell is going. Oh my goodness, what is this? Oh goodness. Ik ben een video aan het opmaken. Dus whoever this is... Oh nee, dank u, sorry. Oh. Excuse me. Niets. Sorry, niets. Excuse me, mea culpa. I'm not gonna... Het is oké, Patrick, het is oké. Het is oké. Het was iemand aan de deur. Het is oké, Patrick. Nee.
Wie was aan de deur?
Laat maar, het is oké. Now, I was reading for the sign of Leo. Wow, this is going to be your energy. This is definitely going to be your energy. Was it Leo? Yes, it was Leo. And I was talking about your 11th house and your goals. My goodness me. This is mea culpa, by the way. You know, someone was ringing at the door and I thought it was someone else, but it wasn't important at all. Thank you for your patience, dear Leos. You know, you're going to think probably, oh, this is going to be a long part for me, but I'm going to take my time for you. But yes, what it means, definitely you, dear Leos, you need some excitement there in your 11th house with the Mars there. It really means your goals. What are the goals that are absolutely not suiting you anymore? And you are tricking yourself. It illusion, right? Like, I thought it was someone else at the door. You know, that is a bit like really believing almost an illusion, right? So it's the same for you. What is it that you believe in that is totally a bit self-sabotage, a bit sabotaging of, if I believe in this, I can go on like this, but you can't. So Mars in the 11th house can be for you very, very positive for new objectives. And yes, I know it's not the January, the beginning of the year, but it can mean really about a new setup for your goals for the future. So you have a whole month for this to figure it out. And but definitely also when you have your own business, it can mean like an extra force that you're applying for like the social media that you're doing, and do it with the great intention. Then it can go really, really viral, you could say, with Mars in the 11th house, putting effort there for sure. And also for your income when it comes to your own business. Now, Saturn is entering your 8th house of Pisces. Now, Saturn in the 8th house has to do with structure, boundaries in that 8th house of yours, which is an emotional house. It's a house of your deep psychological energy, you could say, of your shadows. And Saturn is there to structure that. It's also there to structure the finances that you share with someone else. So in the beginning, you have time for that. So in the beginning, it could mean that there is a situation that you need to take care of, right? Saturn, it could mean loans, insurances that are not going so well for you and that you have to restructure. Again, do that with caution, with little steps, but surely, consistently. And at the end of the road, when Saturn leaves your 8th house, it can mean a better structure of finances that you share with someone else. It also has to do with, as I said, psychology and intimacy. With Saturn there, it's sometimes a bit difficult to be intimate with someone and to show your vulnerabilities. But again, this is a process. This is a process of why this is so difficult for you, and to have to really investigate why you have difficulties in showing the true you, right? Not because probably of trust issues, right? But it's about working on them and adapting yourself to this new you that is a strong person, but that can also be vulnerable. Another thing that is happening, last but not least, Pluto in your 7th house. Wow, for 20 years. That is a big one, especially for the Leos who've got planets around 0, 1, 2, 3 degrees. That is a very, very significant transit. And that shows your relationships Even if you're single, you are in a relationship, it's about the transformation of your attitude, right? Even if you say, oh, but I'm single, Pluto in my 7th house, nothing is going to happen. No. It's your attitude. So this is about power struggles. So definitely if you're in a relationship, you're going to be tempted here to take your power back, or they take their power back when you have been too bossy, for instance. It all depends on your situation. So doing things sneaky, doing things under the radar, manipulating. Yes, it's not going to be possible anymore. Either someone else wants to do that to you, or you want to do that to them. It's all out of fear. And this is to transform. So it could be a totally different situation as well that you and your loved one need to deal with. And that transforms the both of you. I've seen that many times with Pluto crossing the descendant, which is like a couple, for instance, one has Pluto on the descendant and they sell everything and they go to another country and they start all over again. That's a positive side of Pluto, because Pluto wants that. It wants to totally rebuild something. Virgos, what is happening here? Well, first of all, on the 7th, you're going to have your full moon. So for those of you who've got planets between 16 degrees of Virgo, they will feel that the most. So that there's definitely already something in the relationship that is very significant here. That has to do with what you need in a relationship and looking at what that other person needs. And even if you're single, something could become very clear of what your needs are in the future. So that's a good thing to see that fruition there. But what about this Mars? Mars is at the top of your chart and it's squaring Neptune for that whole month. And that for you is definitely about how you want to put energy in your work. If you don't have a job, it's how you want to be seen by people. Can also be a parent, that there could be a bit of a friction there, a bit of ego going on, also at the workplace. But it squares Neptune. So try to do something creative with your work. Try to do something for an ideal, for not only yourself, but also for others involved. That's the best option. If you're going to do stuff just for yourself with this Mars square Neptune, and certainly with Neptune in the 7th house, when you have a business partnership, it could mean that it is tricky. So beware of those business partners that promise you the world, okay? But you are a Virgo, why am I warning you? I mean, you have discernment. But especially the Virgos who have planets around, you could say 24, 25, 26 degrees of Virgo, because they have Neptune opposing it. So be aware of that. Don't idealize people. Don't put them on a pedestal. All that kind of good stuff that you Virgos know that you have to be a bit more aware of than usual. Now, Saturn in your 7th house of relationships. So that is an interesting one as well. Even if you are single or not single, it doesn't really matter. Saturn in the 7th house is testing your significant relationship. Even if you are single, what can you offer to a person? And what can they offer to you to kind of reassess that, basically. That's Saturn in the 7th house. So there could be, if you're single, that you're a bit scared of starting a relationship. And that's not so bad, but it has to do with those little steps. And it has to do with the work that you do on yourself and the maturation of that. And the depth and the seriousness of a relationship. That is Saturn here through your 7th house. When you are in a relationship, it's a lot about, on a positive level, you could say an upgrade of maturity. It's definitely about responsibility. It's not about like, wow, yeah, now Saturn through the 7th house. Oh, fantastic. No, it's more like, ooh, there's some, responsibilities that we have for each other. I remember when I had Saturn through the 7th house, we became parents. So me and my partner. So it's a responsibility. It's not a bad thing at all. But it's like, yeah, it's work, you could say. Or you see your partner a bit more in a Saturnial way. It could mean that they are going through a phase where they're mature, and that could be leading towards a little bit more seriousness. But more of that in that separate video that is linked here below. Now, another thing, Pluto in your 6th house. So from the 24th of March and up until June, you could say, of this year. It's going to be there for a couple of months this year. A sneak preview, you could say. And Pluto in the 6th is really your house. The 6th house is your house. So this is all about transformation, your routines, your work, your day-to-day life, your health. And Pluto does that in a deep way. It doesn't do it like, oh yeah, we're gonna do this for once and for all and a shortcut and whatnot. So a lot of you Virgos, especially if you feel like when it comes to your work, your soul isn't involved, you have an opportunity to look for a job that is more soulful, that is more you, that is more authentic for you. For people, when it comes to health, when you're already having health struggles, right? Pluto can show that you're going to dig deep here, that you're going to dig deep and you're going to go all the way to investigate and to look at what's possible. And as it is in Aquarius, you're not only going to look for like the classical doctors, which as well is necessary often, but also like, okay, what else can I do to be complementary, you know, the alternative side, whether it is acupuncture, whether it is chiropracticing, whatever it is, you know, that leads to that health and a better health, but in a very alternative way, together with something that is a bit more structured, because Pluto wants it all. It wants and the classical way and eating healthy and looking at your emotions and so on. So it's a lot of work, but you've got 20 years to do this. So it can be your cup of tea. It could mean that people now, especially if you're interested in a medical field, that you could really change people's lives with your work, right? Because you are a therapist, or that is very Pluto in the 6th, or you were a surgeon or in the medical field where you kind of meet people that are at a crossroads. So, but definitely interesting energy on all levels for you Virgos. Librans, Mars in your 9th house. Let's start with that. It's in Gemini. That is quite nice. I mean, Mars is in an air sign of Gemini. Libra, you are an air sign. So this is not the worst transit, this Mars square Neptune that I'm talking about. So for you, it's more about being active in that 9th house. And that is studying, teaching, writing, speaking, traveling. So there could be some trickiness there with the square to Neptune. As long as you know what you're doing and your intentions are positive and they are, you know, as I said in the beginning, you can't really go wrong. But expect the unexpected. Expect that you will not always, the actions that you take, it will not always go as you once thought that will be the result. If you are okay with that, go with the flow a little bit, then it's definitely interesting. You can be a little bit insecure when you are studying with this energy, but explore, right? Do it anyways, and just slow down and don't panic, basically. Have that trust. Do what you can do today. That kind of attitude is recommended. Now, Saturn in your 6th house is for the Librans, because Pisces is your 6th house. And for a Libran, that is very often that they don't like all those rules and those routines. A Libran normally is not really keen on that. But now for the couple of years to come, like 2.5 years, it's very interesting for you to have rules, to have routines, to have discipline in your day-to-day life. Not only when you work, certainly when you work. And it could mean that you're working at a job that is really like a bit boring. but it's your learning school. You see what I mean? Or you just started with a job and it's not perfect, but it's about taking responsibility and not giving up, basically. It can also mean your routines, it's a bit more difficult for you. Let's say you just started university and now you have Saturn in the 6th, which you find very often, because then people have to take care of themselves. They have to do laundry, they have to cook, and they have to take care of their finances, all those day-to-day things. That's Saturn in the 6th house. It's a good teacher. It's not fun though. Right? So, but if you embrace it, it can really serve you very well after Saturn leaves this house. And that is very good for your career and also for your health, because the 6th house is a house of health. So you could be doing there a little bit more discipline as well, and slowly but surely getting there. Pluto in the 5th house sounds intense, and it is. But remember, Pluto is in Aquarius, and that is a fellow air sign. So this is really, for you, quite positive, although it is Pluto, of course. But it's about transformation. It's about taking your power back, certainly in love. So it could be like very intense when it comes to your love connections and power struggles there as well, so that you feel overpowered, that you are drawn to a very charismatic person, for instance, and you feel you're giving all your power away. This is to gain your power back. And it could also mean with, manipulation is not going to work here. If you want to manipulate someone and, let's say you meet someone new, and because you like them so much, you want to please them. And with Pluto in the 5th, that's going to backfire, and it's good because that's the lesson. And that is what you are learning, and where your growth is lying. And Pluto in the 5th also has to do with children. So if you have children, it could mean that you're really trying to take over and to be very dominant. But again, it's going to backfire. So you see that quite often with people who've got like children who are like in their teens, and then they have Pluto in the 5th, and it's really important for how to let go of them, but also not fully, right? It's just a different way of attaching. It's like detaching a little bit, but also being there. So you could be learning that. It's also the house of projects and of the things that you love to do. You could be doing something very platonic as a hobby, learning something that goes really, really deep and intense. And whatever that is, a sport or a hobby of yours, it could really be something that is quite intense and transformative for you as well. Scorpios, this is Mars, which is your ancient ruler, by the way, is in the 8th house, still squaring up to Neptune. You know all about this. You know all that I said about this integrity with the Mars and being aware of doing things behind the scenes or in secret. What goes around comes around with Mars in the 8th house. It's a very hidden house, the 8th house. It's the house of, with Mars there, people will not directly see your intentions. So use it the right way. You can use it in a strategic way, your actions, but do it in a positive way to create something with someone else. It could mean like financially you're working with someone to gain investments and money and assets, but be aware of the integrity, right? Again, if another person is not following their integrity, you have to see it and you have to, speak about it, because it's going to have an effect on you as well. But what you can do surely is to create and to work on your shadows and on your fears. I see it quite often when people have Mars through the 8th house, that they work on their fears and that they work behind the scenes, like no one is knowing it, but you're empowering yourself because you're tackling something that you're afraid of, whatever it is. You're doing that in steps and, through the mind as well, because it's in Gemini, and you believe in the, going with the flow a little bit, right? Because this Mars squares Neptune. So, but definitely be aware of your actions and of the psychological insights that you can get out of this, right? As Neptune, this Mars squares Neptune in your 5th house, be aware of secret relationships, right? Like the 8th house is sexuality, intimacy. The 5th house, where Neptune is romance. So be aware that whatever you can start at, I'm not going to judge this, but be aware that what you exude will come back. And but you know that you're Scorpio, so you take that responsibility. Saturn is entering your 5th house now in Pisces. So Pisces is a fellow water sign. So yes, although Saturn is a bit rough, it's in a fellow water house. So it's not going to be that bad for you in the 5th house. On a good level, this is being, you could say, being in a healthy way, having healthy boundaries with your children. So it could mean that they are at an age where you have to be a bit more strict now, and you're doing that, but not too much. You do that in a mature way. Could also mean that a child is maturing, and that you're dealing with that with a little bit of giving them the space, but also having good boundaries there with your children. Also, on a love level, it could mean a more, especially when you are single, attracting more a Saturnial kind of person, which is serious, which is deep, not necessarily a bad thing at all, but it has to do with responsibilities. When you do want children, Saturn in the 5th can indeed mean a little bit of a delay there, but you have to see the whole horoscope if that is just something temporary, and it can also mean fear, right? So it's about doing things, even if you do have a little bit of fear there, but doing it slowly but surely. And also your hobbies. You could do a more Saturnial kind of hobby, whatever that may be, but something that is serious and something that, demands a lot of focus as well. And but this is also very generous for you. Now, a project, it could mean that as well, that you are going to invest in a project, and that you're taking your time and taking it serious, and for a couple of years, a year or 2, 3, where you are going to explore a little bit more on that. Pluto, your modern ruler, is going into your 4th house. Now, for Scorpios, this is super important, especially if you have planets between 0 and 2 degrees. And from March to June, you're going to feel this a lot. It's a sneak preview. Pluto in the 4th has to do with transformation when it comes to your roots, your ancestry, a parent. It could mean a parent goes through a transformation process, or you with a parent goes through a transformation of the relationship. It doesn't necessarily have to be a bad thing, but there is definitely a transition there. But for most people, it's on an emotional level. Oh yes, and another thing that is important, besides from the emotional part, a lot of Scorpios will sell their house, buy a new house, do some plumbing and restoring the whole structure, because that's Pluto, it wants to demolish, to restructure something that is way more strong. So it could be that as well. But as I said, emotions, it's a very emotional house. So it's about restoration of your emotions, so that you are a stronger person, and that you are your old patterns of emotional patterns, you could say, your emotional setup. There's something that is outworn, that needs to go, that is now too much of a defense mechanism rather than it suits you. And therefore, with a lot of insight in self, going deep, going into the shadow, but you Scorpios know how to do that. You can gain a lot of power there. Okay. Sagittarians, Mars in your 7th house. It's almost done, dear Sagittarians. So this is a bit tricky for your relationships. Mars in the 7th house with this square to Neptune, right? So be aware of your actions, and know that Mars in the 7th house, they are strong at this particular moment. And who are these people? These are business partners, clients, the people you work with one-to-one. And of course, your romantic partner, if you are in a relationship. If you are single, it's the potential romantic partner, you could say. So there is something tricky there going on with Mars. So you have to be aware that, first of all, your own intentions, right? I can't stress it enough for a Sagittarian now. Do what you have to do. And if you don't believe in God or in the divine or in the universe, align with your higher self, to say the least. Align with your higher self so that your integrity is okay. That's the biggest part. That's the 50%. What other people are going to do, you don't have that in your control. So it could mean that other people are going to be a bit tricky. Watch your boundaries. Be very firm with some people that, I mean, again, on a healthy level, right? But with the boundaries, because there is a tendency that people would want to be a bit of a trickster there. And of course, because I say this now, don't be like paranoia, but you will know, you will feel. This is about people that are crossing your path for a reason, so that you can have those good boundaries, so that you can have your integrity. And if you're not exuding it, chances are very, very high that it's not going to be all that awful. If you're having lawsuits or things like that, again, this could be very tricky. This could be go with the flow, do what you have to do, stand your ground, but then it's also about not doing the same as what you're pointing the finger towards to them. That's a big one for Sagittarians with Mars in this 7th house. On a positive level, have lots of sex, have lots of activity with a loved one, right? Something that is Mars and Neptune, something that is a bit magical, that is idealistic, creative, that, both of you like to do, that is very romantic, but that is very active. I mean, literally, whether it is going on travel and, having some nice walks and whatever it is, if it's like using your muscles, that will be a very good one. You have Saturn in your 4th house coming up here with at the 7th, 8th of March. For the early born Sagittarians, this is significant. If you have planets between 0 and 10 degrees, you're going to feel this very strongly, that Saturn is now squaring up to your energy in your 4th house. So this is all about maturity. This is all about maturity. This is all about being self-sufficient, being responsible for your own emotions. The 4th house is an emotional house. So this is about not reacting, but responding. It sounds so easy, isn't it? But it's a lot about, you've got time for this, right? You've got 2 to 3 years to learn how to be less reactive and more responsive, and to be very mature, and to be your own parent, to nurture yourself, and not looking for nurturing energy outside of you. Whether it is your parent, it could even mean that a parent needs you in this particular moment, right? Because of some care or whatever it is. Or it could mean a little bit of a distance that you have to make with a parent. Not cutting the cords, of course, but, well, I say of course, sometimes that is necessary. But to cool it, first of all, it can mean that you have to cool down a little bit a connection before you can improve it. It's that kind of energy. And then Pluto in your 3rd house. Pluto is in Aquarius, so that goes well with Sagittarius, although it is intense in your 3rd house. So this is about the strong communicator, the deep communication, deep connections with siblings, with transformative connections with siblings, with neighbors, with people in the neighborhood. That's the 3rd house. If you have your own business, it's your marketing house. It's the way that you speak, the way that you do your marketing, the way that you do your PR, the way that you sell and buy. So Pluto wants to transform this and wants to give you as much power as you can. But then you don't have to fall for, first of all, the power struggles with siblings and with neighbors, right? You have to not try to push your thoughts through them, through their minds. That's not going to work. And the other way around, you will also have to stand your ground with maybe a sibling or with someone in the neighborhood that is testing your boundaries, that is testing you, your power. So you have to take your power back. But for most of you, it's about a study. It's about, this could be very good if you study like a new skill that will serve you, and that will change you on a deep level, right? Whatever the skill is. And so as well, this can be learning. So if you are a younger person, Pluto in the third means very depth. The style of learning is platonic, so you could be learning psychology or astrology or anything like that. And it's going to have a transformative effect. Short trips will change your life with Pluto through the third house. So there's something platonic when you travel. So it's like a death and a rebirth. So, but again, the most important thing, certainly for a Sagittarian, I'm talking out of experience, certainly the Sagittarian rising people, they have a tendency to be the wiseacre. They know a lot. Sagittarians, they on a soul level, they've gone through a lot of experiences and so on. They know a lot, but you have to be aware that not everyone wants to know what you know, right? So that is a very important thing, to not fall into that ego struggle of Pluto in the third. Capricorns, Mars is in your sixth house of your day-to-day work. Now for Capricorns, this Mars is in Gemini and it squares up to your third house. So this is actually for the work area to be so, to do the best that you can with following your integrity. And certainly in the words that you say, the things that you say, be aware that they are as clear as possible. And of course, be aware that when other people say something, it could be misunderstood. So there could be some misunderstandings with work, with your day-to-day routines that you're doing. And that is just for this month, the first, you could say, 2 to 3 weeks of this month in particular. And then Mars shifts more into a relationship sector house, which is your relationships, where there is going to be a bit, the energy is going to be a little bit more exciting there, but that's for next month to explain. Be aware also if you are, you could be very busy in your routines and a bit scattered, right? That energy. Know that this is temporary, but it's also to go with the flow a little bit here. So if the circumstances, you do this on a work and it's out of your control, just try to go with the flow and trust the process, basically, with this Neptune there in a square to it. Follow your integrity as much as you can, and that's the best advice to give. Also, when it comes to your health, there could be some, if you're struggling with something or with an issue, it's a lot about you're doing the best and God does the rest, right? So be really mindful of that. Go a bit to that opinion, another opinion. It's good to have second opinions with this for sure, because Mars square Neptune, it can be a bit difficult to know what it is, right? So patience on your behalf is very important, and a bit that trust that all will at the end go well. Of course, do your thing on a daily basis. Saturn in the third house for you is not that bad, because Saturn is in Pisces. Pisces goes well with Capricorn, and it's the house of the mind. So it's about take a responsibility for your words. So it's a lot about your communication this month. So it's, but you've got here a period of time, 2.5 to 3 years, how to be mindful with the way that you think. Right, so not to certainly to be a bit more serious here. So some people could be starting school or something that they are learning. Saturn in the third is about deep, consistent, slow but surely. Right, not in a shortcut. You're gonna learn in the weekend and you're gonna know it all. No, it's like day by day you're doing a couple of pages learning, and that's gonna bring you success with Saturn in the third. If you're not learning or teaching, it's about your connections with siblings and with neighbors, there could be some testing times here. So that there is some maturity here or some distance could appear. But know that it can be necessary for healthy boundaries, and they learn something about your boundaries. You learn something about your own boundaries as well towards them. And be aware that you can take that responsibility. And the third house is also short trips. So you could be having a bit more delays than usual when you do a short trip. But if you know that, you can calculate that in. And that's not too bad, especially when it's a sextile to your energy. But definitely in your communication and in the way that you do things, it's about being serious. Less is more. Pluto in your second house. That is an interesting one. It's going to stay there for a very long time, but that is your value system. So and your money. So the goal is to have good money, to have plenty of money, a lot of money. With Pluto there, powerful. Money could become very important for you the next coming years, and that's not a bad thing at all. It can empower you. And so with Pluto entering it, it's like you could say, this job that I'm doing now, it's not what I value anymore. That often happens with Pluto in the second house. I can remember when that happened to me, when Pluto entered the second house. I didn't want to do the job anymore that I did. Not only that it was not giving me enough money, but also that it didn't run well with my soul's purpose. And that can often happen with Pluto in the second house. Aquarians, of course. Aquarius, let's start for you with Pluto in your first house. I talk a lot about that in a separate video, which you will find at the end of this video. But Pluto in your house, particularly when you're an early born Aquarian at where you have 0 to 2 degrees of Aquarius, you will feel Pluto there. So this is about you. This is about your life path. This is a once in a lifetime chance to have a rebirth without a death, literally. I mean, it's figuratively a death, you could say, because it's an old identity, especially when it's your ascendant and sun sign. It is an old identity that dies. So the things that you are very, very attached to, for some of you, that's going to be a relationship. For some of you, it's going to be a work. Whatever it is, there is something that needs to go. And there's something that needs to be rebuilt. So don't think that, oh, all my relationships will go. No, only the ones that are no longer karmically suiting you will go, right? That's very much with Pluto on the ascendant or in your sign. And that is a deep process. It's also instinctively that you feel that things will need to change, right? Again, that could mean like, yeah, the work that I do, it's not my soul, it's not my path. Everything that has to do with your path, which is everything, of course, but like the main things in life, a family, a relationship, a job, it's under this test of Pluto. Pluto is going to say, I demand authenticity here. So it's a lot about being real. It's easier said than done, isn't it? I mean, it's so easy said. Be real, be yourself. But it's going to be your mantra for the next 20 years. So you better start with it, right? To start well. Aller Anfang ist schwer. I don't know why I say this German expression now. It's one of the only German expressions I know. All beginning is challenging. So what an opportunity here to stand in your power in every single thing, to be so much you. This is a huge opportunity. Take it. Don't resist it. It only is suffering when you resist it. Can be a bit painful, yeah, if you have to show the real you and you haven't been doing that for like 100 years. But you have to start somewhere. Another thing with Saturn in your second house. So Saturn in Pisces in your second house. It's not my favorite transit for like earning lots of money. On a money level, it's a bit like, be careful there. be careful. It could mean that you just started a job and that you have to build up, right? So that you have to be very clever. It could be economical. Be economical, rational, clever when it comes to your resources. It could mean that you feel a bit insecure. You know, your value system is a bit under attack with Saturn there. But it's for a reason. It's to strengthen you. It's not to, don't go for the guilt trip. Just make sure that you're becoming better, right? If you have Saturn to the second house and you say, oh, I have a job, but I don't have a good education and I don't earn a lot, don't complain, right? Don't go for the guilt trip, the victim role. Embrace Saturn and work on your talents, develop them slowly but surely. Work on, these 2 to 3 years on your economical situation. It's better to save here than to, not from an attitude of lack, not at all, but it's just clever here. It's about being clever in the long run, like in a 2 to 3 year plan that you're having, like saving money so that after 2 to 3 years, you can buy something that is really significant for you. I see that a lot with Saturn there. Also, you can get rid of the things that are no longer suiting you. That could be a good thing for you to welcome abundance, but also to not be stubborn and to be too attached to like a car that breaks down every single 5 minutes, right? But to look for solutions that are healthy, that are within your boundaries, and that are clever again. And if you save within 2 to 3 years, you might buy that car. Whatever that situation is for you, it's a lot about working on your confidence, and you can only do that by working on the self, by investing in yourself. I see that a lot when Saturn goes to the second house. People invest in themselves in a new way. Maybe you are some things are breaking down and you have to also build up again in another level, and you are doing that. Last but not least, Mars is squaring up to Neptune from your 5th house, but Mars is in Gemini, so this is a bit easier for you, although it is with this Neptune square. Mars in the 5th house is in Gemini. It is trining your energy in Aquarius. That could mean a lot of, you could say, energy in the house of the 5th house, which is your love life. And so it could be that you're becoming a little bit more sexual, a little bit more feisty, fiery, but also a bit tricky there with the Mars in a square to Neptune. So don't put people on a pedestal, then you can not go wrong, basically. But do things together that you kind of love, that are magical and healthy, by the way. You could travel with someone that you love, or also children. There could be some things that your children are doing that are a bit sneaky, or you're trying to manipulate your children. It's not going to work. So exude integrity and and go with the flow a little bit. And so be active with your children. Do something like sports or whatever they like to do, and try to do that with them, and in a playful way. It could also mean like a new hobby, or that is quite of Neptunian, that has the Neptunian vibes, which is more creative. Maybe you go for like art or expressing yourself in a way that you've never done before. You know, that is a good expression of Mars square Neptune. Last but not least, the Pisceans. Let's start with Saturn in your sign. The early born Pisceans will feel that the most. So if you've got planets between 0 and 7 degrees, you're going to feel the Saturn entering your sign. Now, this is a lot about maturity. Again, it depends on what kind of person you are. If you are a person that is okay with responsibilities, with taking responsibilities, with dealing with your own, so to speak, then this can be a very good energy for you, especially the upcoming 2 to 3 years. This is about boundaries between you and other people. Let's say that you've didn't have good boundaries with others. You let people walk all over you, or you can't say no. Then Saturn is really a sign that you will be able to do that better. Because you are going to be a little bit more serious now with Saturn in your sign. It could also mean that you're a bit more afraid to connect with people and that you're a bit more protective, but it isn't necessarily a bad thing, especially when you were a little bit too much of sacrificing the self. That this can be a really good transit for you. Of course, it's about working on your future. With Saturn in the first house, you're putting the foundation here for the next 30 years. So when people have Saturn crossing the ascendant, something important can happen, like considering a job, considering something that I see people like starting their own businesses. They have to be, the only one that is responsible is you, right? So you're going to have to be a little bit more cautious maybe with the expenses or with how you do things, but with the healthy steps and boundaries there. It could also mean that there is a phase in your life where you're maturing, especially also in a relationship. So it could be shifts in your relationship that has to do with also more a mature kind of relationship. And you're going to attract that more because you exude seriousness a little bit more here with Saturn there. Although you also have Neptune in your sign, but now Saturn comes in. It kind of balances it out. I think in general, of course, it's not always going to be a difficult thing. So don't run away from your responsibilities is a big one. And you have Pluto in the 12th. So that means your old patterns that are no longer working for you, you have like this Pluto demanding, like get rid of them once and for all. It's very karmic energy here. Pluto in your 12th house. It's really demanding of old patterns that like escape routes, you could say, whether they are big ones or small ones. Pluto wants to deal with them, and it's the shadow, you could say, that is exposed here. And because you are going to do that, the Saturn in the first house, that combination is very interesting because it shows that you're going to have a bit more boundaries there, a bit more stricter, and a bit more disciplined as well. And that is not necessarily a bad thing, but also it's a deep psychology and understanding of your unconscious, which Pisceans have a tendency to already be in contact with, but now even more. And Pluto is the power that you have. It's about empowering. So it's the empowerment of of knowing who you are on a deep unconscious level, very psychological. So like going in therapy, or maybe a friend has the role of the Plutonian friend that helps you with understanding the self on that very deep level, can really, really help you to survival mechanisms that you had for a lifetime, to get rid of that now, because they are they served you, but not now anymore. Now it is more about healthiness, about balance. Last but not least, Mars in Gemini in your 4th house, squaring up to Neptune. So there is this energy of at the home front, you could say. So at home, it's very important there to stay, you could say, following your integrity as much as you can with other people, because people can misunderstand you. And, if you're doing that consciously or unconsciously, you have Neptune there still in your 1st house. So mind you to be as following your integrity as much as you can. There could be a little bit of a clash going on with a parent as well, but know that go with the flow a little bit, and be sure that you have those healthy boundaries, and that is the best option to do. It could also mean that literally you're home. You're going to do a lot at home still, up until the 26th of March. And it's being busy at home. So therefore, it's a good energy to be a bit like putting some magic in your home, like, making really changes in the home, like the furniture and the curtains and all of that, and doing a bit in a beautiful, magical, creative way. That's a very good positive use of Mars in your 4th house. So, and also with selling or buying houses, be following your integrity for sure, because with Neptune in your first house, otherwise, it can backfire. Having said that, this was a long video. My goodness me. I hope it was helpful. Have a very, very interesting, good 2023 March. Bye-bye.